Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm going to be comparing the Zoeva Luxe brushes to a brush set that I actually found on Amazon. When I saw these brushes, the first thing I thought of was these look exactly like Zoeva brushes. The Zoeva brushes are known for their quality, but they are kind of expensive. So I wanted to see if I could find a more reasonably priced alternative that could still promise at least a good portion of the quality that Zoeva brushes have. I found the Jessup Beauty brushes, and they are remarkably similar to Zoeva brushes, to the point where I just had to know if maybe they were twins, if they were the same. It's no secret that a lot of brands do private branding. They'll contract a brush company that will make brushes for them and then stamp the company's logo on it, and then they will sell it as their own. A very well-known example of this is Morphe, who contracted Crown brushes to make their brush lines. So I kind of wanted to see if this was true of Zoeva brushes compared to Jessup brushes. The brushes are in many ways the same. The brushes are numbered the same, the brushes are titled the same, the brushes have the same bristle designs. A good comparison would be the Zoeva 142 concealer buffer compared to the Jessup 142. Between the two, they are very, very similar. I could see if these were actually made in the same factory. However, there are some others that they are numbered the same, they look the same, but I have question as to whether or not they were produced the same. Now, both sets were produced in the People's Republic of China. When I purchased both sets, the Jessup Beauty brush set came first because Amazon Prime is awesome and dangerous, and it came in this little, like, it reminds me of a Matchbox. The box inside slides out, and they were in like this little foam cradle. They were all individually wrapped. When they arrived, they had a very strong paint scent, to the point where I had to let them just let air out for a day or two before I could bring myself to use them, because I just couldn't stand the smell. And I bought these for $16.39. They came with 15 brushes. The Zoeva brushes I bought from Germany. They shipped from Germany, and they cost me 86 American dollars plus $9 shipping, which hurt. I'm not gonna lie. Especially because Prime has me so spoiled. The idea of paying for shipping is just so foreign to me now. But it came with 12 brushes. They were packaged inside of this little vegan leather clutch with Zoeva's logo on the front in rose gold. And I thought it was a very nice touch. The brushes themselves were individually wrapped, and a lot of them had like little brush guards around the ends. It was definitely luxury feeling. Now, due to the difference in the number of brushes between the two sets, I knew that there was going to be some discrepancies and some leftover brushes. So for the purpose of testing, I selected only the brushes that paired with one another. The ones that are labeled the same and look the same. There were some brushes left over that I'm not going to be featuring in this video. The brushes that I will not be featuring in this video are the 221 Luxe Soft Crease Brush, the 233 Cream Shader Brush, the 223 Petite Eye Blender, which I am like really wanting. I like this one though. The 222 All Over Shader, the Luxe All Over Shader from Jessup. And the two Zoeva brushes that didn't match were the 224 Luxe Defined Crease and the 315 Fine Liner Brush. To start the comparison between the two brush lines, I went ahead and washed both of them. This is where I started to notice my first differences. The Zoeva brushes handled washing beautifully. There was minimal shedding, minimal fraying. I did notice on some of the natural hair brushes there was a little bit of fraying, like one hair here and there. But overall, they did really well. The Jessup brushes, I had some problems with. The synthetic hair brushes held up great. No problems there, but the natural hair brushes frayed really badly. Some of the hairs would almost like curl on the outside, and I couldn't smooth them down with just water. I couldn't shape the brushes for them to dry. So I had to condition the natural hair brushes in the Jessup line, but it still wasn't a really fantastic outcome. I want to do an eye look comparing the Jessup brushes to the Zoeva brushes. I am going to be using the Zoeva brushes on the left side of my face. It will be your right. And I'm going to be using the Jessup brushes on my right, your left. And for this look, I'm going to be using the Bad Habit Athena palette. And this is a dupe for the Huda Beauty Desert Dusk palette, and it's like a super colorful sort of palette. Very pretty. And I figured this would be a great palette to showcase any sort of the brush's abilities. I've already done the rest of my face makeup, and I primed my eyes using the Milani Eye Primer. So to apply my transition shade, I'm going to be using the 227 brushes from each line. And I will start with the Zoeva first. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and take Truth out of the Athena palette with my Zoeva 227. And it picked up a pretty good amount of pigment. First impressions, this brush is very soft. It's definitely a natural hair brush. And it deposits pigment very well. And this blends out very, very easily. Like the shadow just blends out very well under its own brush. The other side, I'm going to be taking the exact same shade using the Jessup 227 brush. And it picks up a fair amount of pigment too. First impressions of this brush is favorable. It doesn't feel as full all throughout the brush, but it's not a bad brush at all. It's depositing pigment great. However, on the right side, it's a little patchy. I had to go back for more eyeshadow, and it doesn't seem to be coming off as warm on that side. I don't know why. Like this side over here with the Zoeva brush has a little bit of a warmer tone to the brown. Something I'm noticing about this brush, I don't know if you can see, like I'm trying to figure out a good way to, let's see if it shows up against the black. I'm not sure if it's showing, but there is like two hairs that are longer than the rest of them, and it's not like these are shed hairs, because they're in there tight. I can't just pull it out. But this little one like sticking out like alfalfa cowlick. Now I'd like to deposit a color on the main part of my lid, and for this I'll be using the 234 Luxe Smoky Shader from both lines, and I'll be starting with Zoeva's. I'm going to use the shade Epic right here. It's like a blue-purple duochrome shadow. Now the Zoeva is kind of struggling to pick up any pigment. There we go. I'm just gonna pat Epic all over my eyelid. The brush is still really struggling to pick up pigment, and I don't know if that's just the shadow or the brush. For the other side, I'm going to be using the Jessup brush also numbered 234 and also called the Luxe Smoky Shader. And this one is suffering the same problem as its cousin brush in the same set. It's got wee little hairs that are sticking out that are longer than the rest, and they're not sheds. They're not shed hairs because they're stuck there pretty good, but they are longer, and it's sloppy. This did have a little bit of fraying with being washed. This brush is also having a hard time picking up pigment, so I'm more inclined to think it's the shadow that is the issue here. However, it definitely picked up more. To start depositing color into my crease, I'm going to be using the 231 Luxe Petite Crease Brush from both lines, and I'm going to be starting with the Zoeva. What do you think? Let's go ahead and do Justice, just because I feel like playing with colors. This is a very pigmented shadow. So let's go ahead and put that in the crease, and wow. Now that's purple. This brush is having no issues picking up pigment here. Maybe do a little bit of a halo eye. So for the other side, I'm going to go ahead and use the same brush from the Jessup line, the 231 Luxe Petite Crease. It also picked up pigment very well. And we're going to go ahead and start depositing that color. This is doing a fantastic job. I'm really pleased. The brushes are not as soft as the Zoeva brush, but it's okay. It's like, it's not scratchy, it's not super stiff, it doesn't hurt. It's just not as soft. I think I'm gonna try and blend some of this out. There wasn't any really dedicated blending brushes in either set, or at least they weren't labeled as such. So I'm going to be using the 228 brush from both lines, and that is the Luxe Crease Brush. It doesn't look like a blender, really. I mean, it kind of does, but it's too tapered at the end, in my opinion. But we'll go with it and see if we can make it work. It's doing a decent job. Frankly, I'd rather have my dedicated blender for this, and I may very well end up grabbing it. I don't know yet. This one was one of the ones that didn't fare so well with the washing portion. I don't know if you can see. I can kind of see it on camera against like my hair. Like all the little frays. But let's give it a shot. The Jessup brush is noticeably stiffer than the Zoeva brush. It's kind of scratchy. Yeah, it's just not very comfortable. I mean, it's actually doing a pretty good job of blending. Perhaps better than the Zoeva brush for this. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my trusty It Cosmetics blender. I'm just going to go in with Wisdom. This is like dark eggplant purple shimmer. And to put that along my lash line, I'm going to be using the 226 smudger brush from both lines, starting with Zoeva. And on the other side, I'm going to use the Jessup brush. I think I'm going to go back in and deposit more of that color with the 230, this is the 230 Luxe Pencil brushes, starting with Zoeva. This one picked up a decent amount of pigment. This one is a little scratchier than the Zoeva brush, but it's not noticeable, though I imagine this probably wouldn't feel real good if you were trying to like blend out pencil liner. And since I don't have a more precise blending brush, I'm just going to be going in with my Elizabeth Mott blending brush. This one's a little smaller and denser. Now the Athena palette doesn't have a shade that's really close to my skin tone to put on my brow bone, so I'm just going to go in with my face powder for this. And to apply it, I think I'm going to use the 142 concealer buffer brushes. It's like a really dense synthetic brush. And to deepen my crease, I'm going to use those pencil brushes again. And this time I'm going to use Clever. It's dark brown matte shade. Lightly start deepening up that crease. I'm actually going to wet these brushes using a facial mist, see if I can get better pigmented deposit on like my center eyelid, and dab that onto my, oh yeah. I did very well. Much better. And put that same shade on my bottom lash line. Next I'm gonna put some inner corner highlight, and for this I'm going to be using the 237 Detail Shader. Let's do gold. We'll use Cunning right here. And first side with the Zoeva. Now the Zoeva's got a couple strays around where the ferrule clamps around the bristles. And let's do the other side with the Jessup brush. Okay, in this contest, the Jessup brush took first, second, and third place. It definitely picked up more pigment and laid it down better. And it's a little softer, but it also has like the little scragglies on the end. I didn't see that. I thought this was a gold, but it's got like rosy, it's like a rosy duochrome. Let's do the other side with the Jessup brush. This one seems to have slightly longer bristles. Okay, in this contest, the Jessup brush took first, second, and third place. It definitely picked up more pigment and laid it down better than the Zoeva brush. Okay, next I wanted to test the 317 wing liner brush, but I don't have any gel liner. So I'm gonna kind of have to like MacGyver this a little bit. So I'm just going to be using my NYX Collection Noir liquid black liner, and I'm just gonna kind of like use the brush to deposit that product. And on the other side, I'll use the Jessup 317 wing liner. This one's like thicker, like it's wider. So I don't know how accurate I'm going to be able to get with this. My guess is not very. Yeah, there's no way I'm going to be able to get a sharp wing with this. Yeah, I'm just going to abandon that now. Well, no. You got an experiment, you gotta see it through. In no universe could anybody mistake that for wing liner. I'm gonna just kind of highlight my brow bone, and I'm going to be using the 322 brow liner. This is, as it's named, a brow brush, but I think it's a little too wide for that. But I've already got my brows done, so I can't use it here, and I don't use pomades anyway. So I think I'm actually just going to take the shade here in the palette called Purity. It's like a really light butter yellow. And with the Zoeva brush, ooh, it's a little stiff. Dug right into that shadow. And then the same with the Jessup 322. Like lining underneath my brows. I think I prefer the Jessup brush, but for like, if I were to use this with like a pomade for my brows, I probably would prefer the Zoeva one. Just gonna finish up the rest of this, just putting a little black liner on my lower lash line. Okay, I am going to hop off camera and put on mascara and false lashes because I can't seem to do that with a camera pointed at me. So I will be back in a second. Alright guys, I've got lashes on, did my mascara and my lipstick, and this is the final look. And yes, I know that this lash is wonky. The overall outcome was actually pretty good with both brushes, but there were a few things along the way that they just did not compare. Namely, like the liner brush was a huge flop on Jessup's part. There were some brushes that just did not measure up to their more budget counterpart. The 237 brushes, I vastly preferred the Jessup brush over the Zoeva brush. When it comes down to it, which brushes do I prefer? And I think it's pretty obvious by this point, the Zoeva brushes win. The quality is better, the quality control is better. Just all around blew the Jessup brushes out of the water with one or two exceptions. Alright guys, that's all I have to say about that. That's my comparison, my thoughts on both brush lines from Jessup and Zoeva. I hope this was informative, and if you guys would like to see more of the same, go ahead and comment down below and hit that subscribe button before you leave. Alright guys, thanks a lot. Bye.